Okay, this video is going to cover do now number 7 and do now number 8 from chapter 7 and also the classwork from 7-6. So for do now number 7, building A is 480 feet tall and building B is 650 feet tall. If the angle of depression from the top of building B to the top of building A is 42 degrees, how far apart are the buildings to the nearest tenth of a foot? Okay, so let's just draw a picture of what's going on here. So I'm going to call that line that I just drew building A, and building A is 480 feet tall, and then building B is going to be next to it, and that's going to be 654 feet tall. The angle of depression from the top of the building, so that means we're going to connect here to here, and the angle of depression is technically this angle right here. And they're telling me that that's going to be 42 degrees. Okay, and we want to know how far apart the buildings are. So we want to know this distance right here that I just drew that dotted line with, and we're going to call that length x. Remember, that angle of the angle of depression is equal to the angle of elevation. So that other angle I'm going to call 42 as well. And then I'm also going to find this little piece right here of that top right triangle, and I'm going to get that by doing 654 minus 480, so that's going to give me 174 altogether. So now all I'm going to do, again, just remember SOHCAHTOA, you can only use a right triangle, so I'm going to concentrate on that right triangle. This is the angle in question with relation to 42. That 174 is the side directly opposite, and x is the side adjacent, which means opposite and adjacent, we're going to end up using the tangent here. So we're going to say the tangent of 42 equals the side opposite, which is 174, over my side adjacent, which is x. Again, we'll cross multiply, and again, to do that, if you like to, stick it over 1. So I'm going to have x times the tangent of 42 equals 174, and we'll divide both sides by the tangent of 42. Okay, so again, inside your calculator, you're going to do 174 divided by the tangent of 42 and hit enter. And in the end, you should get an answer to the nearest tenth of 193.2. Again, please play along and make sure that you got that as your answer. And if you didn't, again, please make sure you ask about it. Okay, for do now number 8, we want to find the measure of each missing side or angle to the nearest tenth. So again, we're going to concentrate on SOHCAHTOA here in all of our different ways. So in number 1, I need to find that value of x. Again, that side opposite your right angle is always your hypotenuse. That means in relation to x, that 27 in this case is going to be the side adjacent. So the one that deals with the adjacent and the hypotenuse at the same time is the cosine. So we're going to have the cosine of x equals the side adjacent, which is 27, over my hypotenuse, which is 33. Okay, so again, this is going to be all calculator. Okay, so you're going to do second cosine inverse because you're looking for the measure of the angle of 27 divided by 33, and then hit enter. And when you do that, you should get an answer of 35.1. Okay, for number 2, this time the angle in question is this 24, which with relation to that 24, x is the side directly opposite that. And again, the side directly opposite my right angle is always my hypotenuse. So I have the side opposite and my hypotenuse, so that means this time we're going to do the sine. So I'm going to have the sine of 24 equals my side opposite was x, and my hypotenuse is 31. Again, I'll chuck that over 1, and we'll cross multiply. So I'm going to have 31 times the sine of 24 equals x. So again, we're just chucking that right into the calculator. And when you do that to the nearest tenth, that one should come out to 12.6. Okay, for number 3, I'm missing that one side of that right triangle. And this time I'm not given any angle measures other than that right angle. Okay, I don't have one of the acute angles, which means I'm not going to use SOHCAHTOA this time to find the missing side of a right triangle when you're only missing one side. We're using the Pythagorean theorem. So we're going to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The only thing that matters is what's going in for c. Again, c is going to be the side directly opposite your right angle. It's going to be your hypotenuse. Doesn't matter how you plug in the 19 and the 16. So I'm going to say 19 squared plus 16 squared equals x squared. 19 squared is 361. 16 squared is 256. And I'll just bring down my x squared. 361 plus 256 should give me an answer of 617. So 617 is going to equal my x squared. The opposite of squaring something is taking the square root, and the square root of 617 to the nearest tenth should be 24.8. Okay, and then for my last one, I need to find this x over here. Okay, and this time they gave me two of the angles, and they're not told that this is a right angle. Actually, let's put this one on hold. You actually can't do this one yet because it's the law of sines, which we're actually going to do in the next section. So you're going to see that in tonight's video. So don't do this one. I'm just going to write a note here. You need the law of sines for this. Okay, because again, you're not told that it's a right angle. You can't use SOHCAHTOA. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do today is we're going to start the classwork for 7-6. So again, I'd like you to work on the classwork first, but this video is with the intention of if you get stuck, you can look and see how to do each question here. So again, you can scroll through, fast forward, see the answers, make sure you have the right answers, compare your work, and if you get one wrong, obviously, you can watch me do it. Okay, so the first one here, I have a pole with an antenna is 100 meters from a building. From the top of the building, the angle of elevation to the top of the antenna is 62 degrees, while the angle of depression to the base of the pole is 34 degrees. Find the height of the pole, including the antenna, to the nearest meter. Okay, so there's a picture is already drawn and everything is pretty much labeled already. And what I want to ultimately find here is the total height here that I just put in red. So I need to find that total height in red. So what I'm going to do, again, keep in mind that you can only use SOHCAHTOA on right triangles. So I'm going to have to find two different pieces of information. I'm going to have to find the length from D to C, or the distance from D to C, and I'm going to have to find the distance from E to D. So I'm going to call one of them X and one of them Y. Okay, so what's going to happen is we're going to concentrate on one right triangle, and then we'll concentrate on another right triangle. And after we get our values for X and Y, we're just going to add them together. So how about we find X first? So again, that's going to be my right angle. This is the angle that I know something about. So with relation to that 34, that side X is directly opposite. Oh, and by the way, if this is 100, that means that one's 100 as well. Okay, so with relation to the 34, that 100 now is now your side adjacent. And the trig function that's going to deal with the side opposite and the adjacent at the same time is going to be your tangent. Okay, so we're going to do the tangent of 34 is going to equal the side opposite is X over the side adjacent, which is 100. And then we'll cross multiply and solve there. So I'm going to have 100 times the tangent of 34 is going to equal X. So again, you just have to do 100 times the tangent of 34 in the calculator and hit enter. Eventually we're going to round to the nearest meter, but let's not round too soon. So let's say this value is going to be 67.45. Okay, so now I have my value of X. So now let's find Y. So I'll switch back to orange. So now I'm concentrating on that top orange triangle. And again, I want to find Y. And this time my angle in question is that 62. So with relation to 62, Y is the side opposite. And again, that 100 is also still the side adjacent in that orange triangle as well, which means we're going to be using our tangent function again. So this time we're going to do the tangent of 62 equals the side opposite, which is Y, over the side adjacent, which is going to be my 100. Cross multiply, and I'm going to have 100 times the tangent of 62 equals Y. Again, chuck that into the calculator, and when you do, again, I won't round too soon, you should get 188.07. So now the last step here to find that total distance of the building, I just need to add those two numbers together. So if you do 67.45 plus 188.07, you're going to end up with an answer of 255.522. So that to the nearest meter now is going to be 256. So that whole height of that flagpole with that antenna is 256 meters. Okay, number two, going to be a little bit more straightforward here. So we have a man whose eye level is 6 feet above the ground, looks up at the top of the pole at the angle of elevation of 32 degrees. If the man is 150 feet from the pole, find the total height of the pole to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so again, I need to find the total distance here that I just highlighted in purple. But the first thing I need to do in order to find that is I'm first going to have to find that piece of that right triangle with his eyesight. And then once I find that, I'll add the 6 meters to it coming from down here, and then I'll get the total height of my flagpole there. Okay, so again, with relation to 32, that side H is the side opposite, and 150 is your side adjacent. So again, the trig function that deals with the opposite and the adjacent, again, only takes a second to write it, SOHCAHTOA. So the opposite and adjacent is going to be the tangent. So we're going to do the tangent again. So the tangent of 32 is going to equal H over 150. And again, we'll cross multiply and solve here. So I'm going to have 150 times the tangent of 32 is going to equal H. Chuck that all into the calculator. And when you do that, you are going to get an answer of 93.73. But again, I need to also add that additional 6 on top of that, the additional 6 feet. So when I do that, I'm going to get 99.73. It says to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 places after the decimal. Okay, number 3, we have a radio station tower was built in 2 sections. From a point 87 feet from the base of the tower, the angle of elevation to the top of the first section is 25 degrees, and the angle of elevation to the top of the second section is 40 degrees. To the nearest foot, what is the height of the top section of the tower? Okay, so everything again is already drawn and labeled here, and ultimately I want to find this X, which is just that top section. Now, that part that I just highlighted in blue, it's part of a triangle, but it's not part of a right triangle. So we're going to have to do 2 things here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find this height right here that I'm highlighting in brown. Okay, so I'll find that height. And then I'm also going to have to find the entire height here. And then I can subtract the purple distance minus the brown distance in order to get your value of X here. Okay, so I'm going to call that piece that I wrote in brown here, I'm going to call this piece Y. Okay, and I'll call my other piece Z, just to keep our colors consistent here. So let's find Y first. Okay, so Y is part of, I'll finish the blue, brown, I know my colors, that brown triangle here. Okay, and now with relation to 25, Y is the side directly opposite, and 87 is the side adjacent. Okay, once again, opposite and adjacent, I'm going to be using my tangent again. So my tangent of 25 equals my side opposite, which is Y, over the side adjacent, which is 87. So we'll cross multiply and solve. So we're going to have Y equals 87 times the tangent of 25. So again, inside your calculator, you're just doing 87 times the tangent of 25 and hit enter. And again, when you do that, you should get an answer of 40.57. Okay, I won't round again until the end. So next I need to find Z. So Z ultimately is this purple piece, which is part of this big purple triangle that I just highlighted. So now we're interested in that angle of elevation, that's 40. So with relation to that 40, that Z again is my side opposite, and 87 is still going to be my side adjacent. So once again, we're using the tangent. So this time we're going to have the tangent of 40 equals the side opposite, which is Z, over my side adjacent, which is 87. Ooh, sorry. Cross multiply again. So I'm going to have Z equals 87 times my tangent of 40. And when you chuck that into the calculator, you should get an answer of 73. Again, it wasn't asking me for Z or Y here. It's asking me for X. So now if I take that 73 and get rid of that brown piece on the bottom, I don't know why this is jumping so much. Okay. That's going to leave me with that value of X on the top. So when you subtract, you should get an answer of 32.43, which again to the nearest foot is going to end up being 32. Okay, flipping over onto the back side. Okay, we want to find the measure of theta to the nearest tenth of a degree. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to have to find that piece that I highlighted in purple there. Okay, because once I find that, I'll be able to find the entire distance from here to here, and then I'll be able to concentrate on that right-hand triangle in order to find theta. But first, we're going to have to concentrate on the left-hand triangle, which I'm highlighting in green. Okay, so we're with relation to this 48. So with relation to that 48, I'm going to call this side that I'm looking for here X. Okay, so with relation to that 48, that side is going to be, I shouldn't have drawn that going that way. A little confusing because that's the side directly. That's your right angle there. That's going to be your hypotenuse directly across from the right angle. And that X is directly adjacent. So the trig function that deals with the adjacent and the hypotenuse at the same time is going to be your cosine. So we're going to do the cosine of 48 degrees equals your side adjacent, which is X, over your hypotenuse, which is 15. So we'll cross multiply and solve. So I'm going to have 15 times the cosine of 48 is going to equal X. Again, just chuck that into the calculator, and when you do that, you should get an answer of 10.04. Okay, so now that 10.04 represents that green piece of that triangle right here that I'm kind of double highlighting there. So now, if I can find the entire length here, then I can concentrate on that purple triangle. So all I'm going to do is take that 10.04 and add that 2 millimeters to it to get 12.04 for the entire side of that triangle now. Okay, so now with relation to theta, that 12.04 is going to be the side that's directly opposite that, and your side here, that 16, is going to be the side adjacent. So opposite and adjacent is going to be your tangent function. So this time we're going to have the tangent of theta. Remember, if you don't like theta, just call it X. The side opposite is 12.04 and your side adjacent is 16. Again, this time we're looking for the angle measure. This is still all calculator, but to find the angle measure, we're going to have to do the tan inverse. So again, inside your calculator, you're doing second tan inverse of 12.04 divided by 16 and then hit enter. And when you do that to the nearest degree, theta should come out. I don't know why this is jumping so much at all. Hey, there we go again. Hey, you should get an answer to the nearest degree of 37 degrees. Okay, number 5. Number 5, Jim and Ted live on one side of the river and Martha lives on the other side. The distance across the river is 100 yards. Ted, who lives downstream from Martha, measures an angle of 35 degrees between the shore and the straight line leading to Martha's house. Jim, who lives upstream from Martha, measures an angle of 60 degrees. How far apart do Ted and Jim live to the nearest tenth? So ultimately, I'm looking for this entire distance in purple. Now that entire distance in purple, if I were to complete the triangle, is not part of a right triangle. So we're going to have to find two pieces of information here before I can find that purple distance. So I'm going to call that purple distance X. I'm going to call the distance from here to here, that is going to be Y. And how about, we'll use red. This distance from here to here, we'll call that piece Z. Okay, so again, it doesn't matter what you find first. I'm going to find Y first. So Y is going to be part of that orange triangle on the left there. And now with relation to this 60 degrees, that 100 is the side directly opposite that. And that Y is adjacent. So once again, here we go with our tangent. So the tangent of 60 is going to equal our side opposite, which is 100, and our, oops, my good God, and my side adjacent, which is Y. So again, we're going to cross multiply and solve. So I'm going to have Y times the tangent of 60 equals 100. To get Y by itself, we're going to divide by the tangent of 60. Okay, again, the tangents of 60 will cancel on the left. And again, in the calculator, you're just doing 100 divided by the tangent of 60 and hit enter. And when you do that, you should get an answer of 57.74. Okay, the next thing that we're going to need to find is Z. Okay, so now Z is going to be part of that red triangle, and this time we have that angle of 35 degrees. So with relation to 35, that 100 is still going to be the side opposite, and Z is going to be your side adjacent. So shockingly, here we are using our tangent again. So we're going to have the tangent of 35 equals the side opposite, which is 100, over the side adjacent, which is Z. Cross multiply. I'm going to have Z times the tangent of 35 equals 100. Divide both sides by the tangent of 35. Again, the tans of 35 will cancel on the left. And again, straight calculator, 100 divided by the tangent of 35 should give you an answer of 142.81. Okay, so again, we're not done yet. To find the entire length between Jim and Ted's house, we need to add the orange distance and the red distance together. So if I add 57.74 plus 142.81 to the nearest tenth, that will give me 200.6. Okay, and our last question. A person at point A looks to the top of a mountain at point D at an angle of elevation of 60 degrees. That same person spots a mountain goat 100 meters up the mountain at point C. The angle of elevation from point A to point C is 45 degrees. Find the distance between the top of the mountain and the goat to the nearest hundredth. So again, they told you that the goat was at C. So here's your goat. And then D, that means that D is going to be the top of your mountain. So again, two things that I'm going to have to do here. Okay, so I want to find the distance between the goat and the top of the mountain, which they've already labeled X for me. So my ultimate goal is to find X. The problem is, again, that little piece up here is not part of a right triangle. So I'm going to have to do two things. I'm going to have to first find this side right here. I'll find this side first, part of that bottom triangle. And then once I find that, then I'm going to go and I'm going to find this entire side here. And then I can subtract. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do. So I'm looking at this 45 right here, and I'm looking at this bottom. Let me change my color, green. Okay, I'm looking at this bottom green triangle. And ultimately, I want to find on the label the side Y. Okay, so with relation to 45, that 100 is directly opposite, and this Y is directly adjacent. So one more time, we're going to have the opposite and the adjacent, which means that we are doing the tangent. So we're going to do the tangent of 45 equals the side opposite, which is 100, over the side adjacent, which is Y. When you cross multiply and solve there, you're going to get an answer of 100 again. Okay, I can't make a video more than a half hour. It won't go on YouTube, so I have to skip a little at this point. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find this entire purple side, which I'm going to call Z here. So again, this is going to be with relation to our 60-degree angle and that entire triangle right there. Okay, so with relation to that 60, that Z is directly opposite the 60 degrees. And I know this side now is going to be 100, and that's still going to be my side adjacent. So again, we're going to do the tangent of 60 equals the side opposite is z over 100. When you cross multiply and solve there, you're going to get 173.205. Again, it didn't ask me to find that, though. It just wants this piece. I can finally find that. If I take that 173 that I just found and get rid of the 100 from the bottom, from here, okay, when I subtract them out, I'm going to have 73.21, and that's it.